All right. Evening, everyone. It's 7 o'clock, so we're going to start up. So let me call the meeting to order. Let's do a pledge. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. We have a community segment in a moment, but I'll ask for a moment of silence in honor of the passing of Mayor Clara Lou Gould, and we'll have someone talk about her momentarily. Thank you. I've also asked that flags in the city be flown at half-staff for the week. And then in terms of roll call, I see Molly, Jeff, myself, Paloma, Pam, and Dan. Amber is excused. She's away this week on business. Nick, I believe you're remote.
I am. Good evening, Mayor and council members.
All right, so the city attorney is remote, and I see the city administrator here, so that's roll call. Peter, Pam, you want to come up, introduce yourselves, and talk about Clara Lou? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and we just wanted to express our appreciation on behalf of Clara Lou's family for your courtesies. I talked to Chris this morning and talked about lowering the flag to half-mast. Mayor Kyriakou was so kind to come and visit Clara Lou yesterday, I can tell you that my recollection of many meetings that Clara Lou chaired right here in this room when she was mayor, and had the privilege of serving with her as city attorney for 9 years before I became a county court judge. She was a wonderful woman. She worked very hard for the city of Beacon. She loved the city of Beacon, and we appreciate the respect that you're giving her tonight, and that I gave you each a copy of a press release that I prepared that is going to the various news organizations to kind of give some flavor of what she accomplished during the course of her 18 years as mayor. First woman mayor to be elected in the city of Beacon history, longest serving mayor for 18 years. When she retired in 2007, she was the longest serving woman mayor in the state of New York. So just in tenure-wise, she made a lot of she accomplished a lot of goals, I'm sure. But the quality of her term in office, I think, is what most people will remember. And probably the one thing that will stand out is the DIA sighting in 1999, and how much DIA meant to the redevelopment of Beacon. And she was very much involved in that. She supported it 100%. And there were times when we weren't sure if it was going to happen. And Clara Lou was always one of those people who said, keep pushing, be persistent. And we actually were able to make it happen. So Pam Barrick is also with me. Pam has been at her right hand.
1 second, Peter. I just want to make sure that we introduce Peter Foreman. Peter, as he mentioned, was the city attorney for 9 years?
9 years.
9 years before becoming a family court judge. But was very instrumental in that early period when Clara Lou was mayor. Pam, make sure you introduce yourself as well, but I can do that if you want. So Pam Barrick, also very active in the community, worked for the county for a number of years as well. Yes. In county government. So both committed to community service, and thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
And bring the mic down if you're going to speak.
Thank you. And I'm not going to repeat what Peter said, but please read. But she was very active. Other than being the mayor of Beacon, she was quite active in the community before, during, and after her tenure as mayor. So we're going to miss her terribly. So thank you.
I did not put in the press release, but her services are going to be next week at the Halvey Funeral Home, Monday 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock for her wake, and funeral on Tuesday at St. Joachim's Church. That will be in the obituary, which will be published probably tomorrow, the next day, in local media. So thank you.
Yeah, I would just add that Clara Lou was my mayor. So I got on the council in 1993. The charter revision vote was in 1989. We hadn't moved to Beacon yet, and Claire Lou was elected at that time, not under the new system, but under the old system. And then because the charter was voted in 89, the first election under the new system was 91. She was elected then as well. I joined the council one term later in 93, and I always will refer to Claire Lou as mayor because she was mayor when I was there. So
She was a really humble person. She used to recite that famous saying, you can't imagine how much you can get done if you don't care who gets the credit. And that was Clara Lou Gould's motto. And was always someone who never wanted to jump in front of the cameras, but behind the scenes, she was getting the work done, planting all the seeds to make sure that a lot of things, including the construction of this building that we're in right here tonight, this was a major task to take the city police, the city offices, and our city court and get them all under one roof. Her city administrator at that time was Joe Braun, served for the whole time that she was mayor, and the two of them, I think, worked hand in glove to help plant a lot of the seeds that are blooming in Beacon today. And as a lifelong resident of Beacon, I can't tell you how much we admire her and appreciate how much she put in an awful lot of time. I'll tell you one quick story. Ron Sowers was thinking about going to Peekskill to develop properties in Peekskill. And no one in Peekskill would take his calls. Couldn't get through the bureaucracy. So he called Beacon, and Claire Lou picked up the phone. He was amazed that he could make one phone call and get the mayor on the phone. He decided, I'm coming to Beacon, and I'm taking my talents to the east end of Main Street. And he and Ronnie Beth basically transformed the east end of Main Street because Claire Lou picked up the phone. So just one little vignette. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for what you're doing for her. And thank you for coming yesterday, Lee, to see her.
yeah. Yeah, I had the good fortune of seeing Claire Lou a couple weeks ago. I went to her house to invite her personally to come to the firehouse opening. She wasn't able to make it, but I was one of the visitors in the last couple of days. I will note, you mentioned the Dia story. Yeah, it wasn't a straightforward process, and the community was still looking at factories as, the source and the vision for the community. And it was a period where the council, and Chris was on it as well during that period, we were all looking for what's the vision going to be going forward. And I think we were fortunate as a group that we tended to talk openly, find kind of where we thought we were going, and there was always a general consensus that that was the right approach. And I think that style of leadership informed my leadership as well.
We have been very lucky, I think, in Beacon to have very proactive, smart, hardworking mayors, not just you, Randy Casal, Steve Gold, Claire Lou. We've had on both sides of the political aisle people who really have a vision for Beacon and have a way of figuring out how to create a consensus and how do we get that vision accomplished. We're very lucky. I think we're in very good shape right now with the folks that are there now. Again, thank you again very much, both Chris and Lee and everyone on the council for honoring Claire Lou. There's a bench out in the front of the municipal building when Randy was mayor that the city council and Randy dedicated in her honor at her 92nd birthday, I think it was. And it's just very nice that people have not forgotten and always kept her, you guys have always kept her in the loop, and I think she always appreciated that. Chris was telling me this morning that she used to call him up with Renegades tickets all the time.
Just even a few months ago, she
Yeah.
said, I'm not going to make the game. Do you want to go?
And she had a 30-year string of going to those
Oh, I know
games.
she had
season
season
tickets
tickets.
from 1994. She probably missed like 5 games. She was very, it's like anything else she was in, she's very dedicated. So, thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Clara Lou, we will miss you. So our other community segment is offered to us by the high school in their participatory budgeting and their participation in government process. Who's going to lead this? It's all right. So Aaron, you're on.
Good evening. I'm Erin Hadeland. I'm here with Mr. Dwyer, our principal, Ms. Clemens, and Mr. Newman, who are also teachers who've been helping all these students get through their projects. So we're here again for the third year in a row from Beacon High School. We're excited to present our participatory budget proposals. Every year there are new proposals. Every year they get more and more interesting. Through this amazing opportunity, our high school seniors, mostly, are able to collaborate with our community and become active citizens. The following student presentations have identified key areas where funding can make meaningful impact on our city's growth and well-being. Our goal is to empower local residents, especially underrepresented voices like high school students, in the decision-making process of government and their lives. We believe that these projects create lasting improvements that reflect the values and needs of our community. So thank you guys so much for allowing these kids to come here every year and make these presentations, and for listening to them and all of the feedback that you provide each and every time. So first, we have a Native Gardens proposal by Anastasia, Annabelle, and Taryn. All right.
And Ben, can you put their presentation up? So when you want to advance the slide, just say next slide, and Ben will walk you through.
And whoever's speaking needs to speak into that mic.
All right.
There should be an updated presentation. That was the original draft of it. Just hit next. Is this okay, or you need it?
This is, no, we should have,
Okay, can we go to the next presentation? Would you guys, on the
yes, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so you guys sit down.
Next.
Okay, next up is Brody and Tim. Oh, Brody and Jude. That threw me off. All right, we have Brody and Jude. Good luck.
And Aaron, if you can send the updated one to Ben, we'll get that loaded.
Good evening.
Thank you.
And again, tell us your name, and then whoever is speaking, make sure you speak into the mic.
Good evening. I'm Brody Tim.
And I'm Jude Benincourt.
So our idea is to build a fitness community in Memorial Park. Next slide, please. The problem is right next to the skate park, there is a abandoned tennis courts that are broken, unappealing to look at, and could be dangerous. Yeah, next slide, please. The solution is to turn it into a fitness calisthenics gym. Anybody can use it. It's open access to the public, that kind of stuff. It'd be relatively cheap, affordable. It could bring a community together. Next slide, please.
Where we want to start is we want to clean it all out first because there's a lot of cracks, a lot of like glass, open bottles. That's very dangerous. So we want to sweep that up first, and then we want to repave it or get new concrete. And then we want to install like almost like playground bars in a way because it's pretty cheap, affordable, and yeah, durable, I'd say. Next slide, please. And the benefits of it is it's free, so you don't have to go pay to get weights for your home. You don't have to pay for a gym membership, so you don't have to do all that stuff. You can just take a walk to Memorial Park and just work out for free. And it's also a great workout for you. It's better than probably most stuff at the gym or at home. And it can really help you lose weight, burn calories, and feel good, I'd say. Next slide, please.
Cons? There's no cons at all, to be honest. This would bring a really good community together. It'll change the community, I'd say. Next slide, please. With a budget of $10,000, my idea was to use what playgrounds are built with. Build a set of pull-up bars, could be used for muscle ups, a station for dips, which it would be working at the chest area. Yeah. If needed, it would be reinforced for people that are on a weight loss journey. That's basically it. Next slide, please. Oops. Yeah. That's basically it.
I just want to add one more thing. I also think it would be a good use because we have a bunch of different communities, but we don't really have a fitness community yet. Like we have pickleball, basketball, soccer. We all have this stuff at Memorial Park, skate park. Like we have all this stuff, but we don't have like a fitness community per se. So I think it'd be really good to like get a new thing going in Beacon, I guess, I would say. So yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay,
That's it.
thank you.
Any questions?
Seems pretty straightforward.
I think I like it.
Just a clarification while we're setting up the next one. I think last year we kind of discussed these more in detail at our workshop meeting. Does that make sense? Like I have questions from our heads of department and kind of follow up things like that, but not necessarily for the students. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Okay.
But if you have questions about what their vision is, then by
Great.
all means, yes.
Great,
ask.
thank you.
Right. Next, softball field renovations at Memorial Park by Catherine and Sally.
Hi, I'm Catherine Ruffy.
I'm Sally Betterbid. Next slide, please. So our idea is to improve the public softball fields at Memorial Park, specifically the fences, because over the last multiple years they've been getting damaged over and over again, and really just minor fixes have been made. And we need this because various teams are using the fields at least twice a week throughout the fall, spring, and summer. And that includes the JV and modified teams of the high school and middle school, the Beacon Rec Foundation, which is all like the younger girls, Beacon Extreme, which is the travel league for Beacon, and there's multiple adult leagues that also use these fields. And yeah, the fences are just becoming a hazard. So next slide, please. So here are our examples, and as you can see on the far right or far left side, you can see like a small metal line like keeping that pole up, and you can see the fence is starting to detach. And you can see the same thing happening in the middle picture. The fence is completely detached from the bottom post, and that is just a hazard. And then in the far right photo, you can see the fence is almost like tearing apart at the bottom, and that's definitely a hazard, especially the little girls. If they're running out to the field, they could definitely trip over that. So next slide, please. And here again are just more detached posts. As you can see, the far left photo, the fence is completely unattached and there's no post holding it up. And then the middle photo, again, there's that small metal like wire, I'm not sure, but if that is to break like the other ones we showed, the whole bar would just fall down and the fence, it wouldn't be as secure. And then again, another picture of the post unattached. Next slide, please.
On the far left, you can see one of the concrete, what's keeping the post in the ground, and it's starting to rise up. And I think it's a very big hazard, especially for young girls that are running around onto the field. And it's just in the way, and it's a hazard. And on the middle, it's another example of the fence detaching from the support bar. And again, on the bottom right, you can kind of see the small metal piece that's the only thing that's holding it onto the support beam anymore. Next slide, please. This is another example. This is not really to do with the fence, but this is just another thing with the field is all four of the fields are very sensitive to rain and flood very easily. And this is not exactly like a giant rainstorm that happened. This is just your regular rain. It just doesn't have proper drainage. Next slide, please. So there hasn't been much done to address this issue, and only minor improvements have been made to fix these fences or even the field in general, and they continue to worsen every season. And Really, this issue exists because the field's excessive use from the number of teams and players every week on all of the fields. And the fences are just a victim of the wear and tear. We think this problem hasn't really been addressed because it's easily overlooked and possibly not seen as a priority to the community, especially in like the sporting community in Beacon. Next slide, please. So our solution to the problem would be install new fences, especially down the first and third base line for the safety of the players, especially because the fences are detaching. It's not protecting our players as a fence should. So our plan would to be buying 2 fencing kits, 4 if possible, for each field, and each fence cost around $8,400, but we understand the restrictions of the budget, and we would compromise like the 2 main fields of the Beacon softball. Next slide, please.
This is just an example if we were to use the fencing kit. We just took this right from the website to just show how it would look. And the fencing kits also would be 2 feet higher than what the fences are now. So that would also be more like safety issues being tackled, I guess. Next slide, please. So we really hope that these fences get approved because it will just really improve the safety of the players, especially the young girls are really our main concern. And I know that the last field that was made was built in like early 2000s, and they have not been improved drastically since, and it's just been very like bare minimum fixes since then. And we've both been in the Beacon softball community for over 6 years, and we've never really seen a change. And like our whole time in the community, we've known that the fences have always been really bad. And not only do we hope to improve the safety concerns, but each year there are 2 Beacon Extreme tournaments, and like over 20 teams come down, and lots of people stay over, and it just brings a lot of business to Beacon. So we feel like if we improve the facilities, not only will it bring more people to Beacon for the tournaments, but it'll also bring more young girls into the foundation to build it and grow. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, seemed pretty
Thank
clear.
you.
Thank you so much.
Amir Figueroa for Kick Scooters.
Hi, I'm Amir Figueroa. So my idea for Beacon is to implement kick scooters to cut down on traffic throughout Beacon and throughout the sidewalks and the crossing walks. More people on more scooters would mean less people walking on the sidewalks. Next slide, please. Next slide after that, please. So what are kick scooters? Kick scooters are low-cost scooters that are affordable means of transportation throughout the city. They also are electric, and they're good for the environment. Next slide, please. So what kick scooters can provide for Beacon are what I mentioned earlier. They provide an easier flow of traffic, and they're also affordable to set up and provide throughout all of Beacon. I think it would especially help throughout Main Street. Next slide, please. And so the average scooter costs around $300. It could be more or less, just to set up one and then you use as many as you want throughout the city. About 50 or less scooters would be good to start off. That could be placed around the city of Beacon. And the town could also profit from this because you have to pay to use the scooter once you log into the app, and you scan the QR code and you just pay it, and you get on the scooter for the amount of minutes, and you just pay that, and then the revenue can go towards the city making a profit. Next slide, please. And they're also good because not many people have cars, and it can provide a fast way of transportation other than just walking or even using. It would also create less of a use for the buses throughout Beacon, like the free loop, because more people would be able to use scooters and the buses will be less crowded. And then next slide, please.
That's the last slide.
All right, thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Is there any particular reason why you chose kick scooters as opposed to any other electric scooter that's out there?
That was because I have had experience using those scooters, and I looked on the website, and there's actually like a way for you to set them up. It gave an explanation for towns to set them up if they wanted them throughout the whole city. I've thought of bikes too, but I think scooters would probably be cheaper.
Great. Thank you.
Can I ask where you used the kick scooters before, just as a reference?
I actually used them in Puerto Rico when I went on vacation there.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next is Nolan Miller for, oh no, I'm sorry, it's Kakoa Besa for the public restroom.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Okay, so next slide.
And can you say your name? I just saw it. It was really interesting.
Thank you. My name's Kakoa Besa.
Kakoa. Thank you.
So I want to share with you an idea that I believe can make a significant difference in the way we experience our city. And that's by adding more public restrooms throughout Beacon. Next slide. So I want to share a story, a personal story from my sophomore summer. So my friends, oh wait, this isn't the right slide. Next slide. Okay, and put them in the spotlight. All right, next slide again. So you may be asking why include more public restrooms. Next slide. So my sophomore summer, let's back on track. So let me start by sharing a personal story from my sophomore summer. My friends and I wanted to hang out all the time, but we ran into a common issue. Our parents didn't want us, a bunch of rowdy teenagers, hanging around the house all day. So we'd meet up and head to Green Street Park, where there was a public bathroom. But no matter how nice the park was, the lack of additional options and places to go really limited how long we could stay out. We'd end up eventually dispersing and heading home. Imagine if there were more places to go and more things to do, especially with the restroom available when you need it. A better public restroom infrastructure would encourage people, especially young people, to stay out longer, hang out more, and enjoy the city. Next slide. Now let's talk about the bigger picture. More public restrooms can actually create a better flow of people, especially in areas like Main Street, where when people are walking around, visiting shops, or exploring the city. They're more likely to stay out longer and spend money if they feel comfortable and don't need to worry about finding a place to use the bathroom. This would also benefit local businesses by increasing foot traffic and making Beacon more of a destination for residents and tourists alike. A public restroom near Main Street would allow people to enjoy their day without interruptions, supporting both our community and our local economy. Next slide. Creating jobs. More public restrooms would also create jobs. Think about it. Construction, plumbing, sanitation, and maintenance of public facilities all require skilled workers. Building new restrooms would involve a range of trades, from contractors to plumbers to sanitation experts. There are good, stable jobs that could provide local employment opportunities, boosting the economy and providing valuable services to the community. Next slide. There's also ways to give artists a way to express themselves. It's not just about bathrooms. Public spaces, including restrooms, can be platforms for creativity. These spaces can be designed and decorated by young local artists. Imagine vibrant murals of our artwork that reflect the diversity and energy of our city, making these spaces not just functional, but beautiful. Young people in our community, especially artists, often look for opportunities to express themselves, and public restrooms could be a perfect canvas to showcase their work while enhancing the city's atmosphere. Next slide. Beacon is run by the younger generation, and it's time to modernize. Beacon's a city that's increasingly shaped by its younger generation. We're a community that thrives on innovation, creativity, and progress. It's time for us to modernize and adapt to the needs of today's residents and visitors. Public restrooms aren't just a necessity. They're a part of making Beacon a city that's in step with the rest of the world. It's time for us to take this step and modernize Beacon in a similar way. The younger generation who is building Beacon's future deserves a city that reflects our values and needs. Thank you. Actually, yeah, thank you.
I'm curious if there's any particular location in Beacon that you think could benefit from more public restrooms?
I'm glad you asked. I actually think the pavilion at the very end of Beacon is a perfect space to have a restroom. Although throughout the town too.
What you mean by the pavilion?
There's a bus stop with a bench, and I think there's a
By Pole Hill?
yeah, like right up here.
Oh,
right
right
up here.
okay, great,
Right
thank you.
across the street. Yeah. We could even fill alleyways if possible. Any space that can possibly fit a public restroom, I think we should add one. So.
Thank you.
Did you do any research on cost for a public restroom?
Well, it varies a lot, so I was hoping to actually just be able to have a conversation about what we can do, because obviously we can throw $10,000 at a restroom, but like, do we have that kind of funds? Like, yeah, how flexible are we?
Okay,
So,
good.
right.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
Mhm.
Next up is Nolan Miller with her recycling ideas.
Hi, my name is Nolan. I'm here to propose an idea of getting recycling bins throughout the city of Beacon, especially Main Street. Next slide. My issue is that there's like a lot of trash in Beacon, and there's like no recycling bins to like kind of make up for it. Next slide. There should be a way to make the current trash bins look more pleasant, and I think by doing that, there should be like more access to recycling bins as well. Next slide. The issue, while there are trash bins around Main Street, there really aren't a lot of places outside of there, like around the Memorial Park or like other like local neighborhoods. And I'm sure that people do throw away their recyclable items, but that isn't the goal here, because there are dozens of like different items, especially, that could be recycled, but there's no area to exactly do so. Next slide. Solutions. For solution, there could be separate bins in addition to the already existing trash bins, or just like new bins as a whole. But I don't think they would cost too much, no more than $10,000. So they can be placed around the city relatively easy. Next slide. Summary. In conclusion, I think that recycling bins would be a good addition to the city of Beacon to encourage others to recycle, while also doing good for the environment and the image of the city. Thank you. Any questions?
Oh, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Kira and Kiara with Creative Spaces idea.
I'm Kiara.
And I'm Kira Sheehan.
Our idea is to make creative public spaces for artists, but mainly just for anyone in Beacon. Next slide, please. So, I want to...
We wanted to create spaces where people can go and like express themselves through art without like defacing buildings or just like throwing our art up anywhere and then like having just to have it get taken down. Next slide. So the idea started when they put these walls up, and during the Beacon bonfire, when people came to Beacon for the bonfire and all the stuff that was going on during that, artists started putting their artwork up on here as a place to express themselves and like get known. So when we saw this, we thought that it would be better for there to be like a designated space where artists can do this. Next slide.
The first location idea was the skate park alongside the whole entire like back fencing area. I think it'd be good to have one there because a lot of people who are into graffiti and art skateboard, and there's a lot of people there often. It also isn't in a place where it'd like be a really big eyesore to anyone else if it were to get like, I don't know, like some people think it's a distraction, so it'd be like meant for the people who want to see it if it was over there. So just to have a piece of like a concrete slab or a piece of wood alongside the whole entire back fence. Next slide. The next one was to buy another bus. During Beacon Bonfire too, and during when the old high school started getting used more, they have like about 3 buses now out there that have just been like painted on. That's just one of them, but there's 2 others that people just go up onto and paint their ideas onto, and the buses say on it, tag anywhere on it, which means that you can go up there and add pretty much whatever type of artwork you want onto the bus, and no one's gonna get mad about it. So yeah, next slide. And then this one was similar to the skate park, to have one against the fence at Green Street Park too, by the back wall basketball court, because it's kind of tucked away again there. Next slide.
So a couple years back before they built all those new houses right down here, there was displayed art right in front of the bridge entering the train station. And a lot of people liked it because especially it was by Dia, and you saw the art on the way to Dia. So we figured that it would be a nice spot to put it. Just because there's all these people coming into Beacon and like going out of Beacon on the train, and so it would be nice to have something like nice there. Next slide.
I think this would be a good idea because I think it'd help cut down on graffiti a lot. Places that are abandoned, like Madame Brett, there's like it's like covered in graffiti from like floor to ceiling and everywhere. So I think it'd cut down on graffiti on places that we want to stay nice, and like on the sides of buildings of Main Street, people would have like an actual dedicated place that they wouldn't need to worry about paying money for or getting in trouble for, because they'd be able to do it whenever. Next slide. That's it. Oh, that link, sorry, is an example to a similar idea of a graffiti park at a skate park in North Carolina, I think. And yeah, it just kind of shows better what I'm talking about. That's it.
I had a question about whether you, and your vision for this, would you think would people have to apply or sign up to put their art there, or the idea is that it's more open, similar to the bus that encourages anyone to tag?
My idea is that it's open to anyone, so anyone could go up at like 3 a.m. and do something if they wanted. They don't have to sign up. They don't have to like have fancy stuff or pay money, just like whenever they wanted to, if they were just walking by and had an idea, to just go up and do it.
So as long as it's on whatever this space is,
yeah,
you'd be fine with it. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
I have one.
Oh, wait a minute.
The art that was exhibited on the bridge, was it banners or was it on the actual concrete wall?
There was a couple different things. I remember specifically there used to be these like big like hexagon stones that there was
Yep.
like different ones that said Beacon, and each one was a letter, and then it had like a cool background on it. But then like one on the fence I think could be cool there, or like one on the sidewalk concrete under the fence I think could be cool, just because a lot of people go in and out that way. And Beacon is a very artsy city. I feel like we should show that more, especially to the people who are first entering. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and our final project is a native garden presentation from Anastasia, Annabelle, and Taryn.
All right, round two. Maybe.
Maybe. Hopefully.
It's not it. Yeah, it said. It should be the new one. I just sent it. Was it like
Hey, Ben, you should have a new one in your email. Can you upload that one, please?
I did not receive any new emails.
She just sent it.
Okay.
7:14.
At 7:15, do you have something?
No, I didn't receive that.
Can you resend, Aaron, and we'll pop it in?
Is it possible it's too big?
No, we have a large file size that we can accept.
Okay.
Okay. He doesn't have it, Aaron. Can we go off the old one,
We
you
can also,
think?
do we need the slide or can we just read from our, we have it?
Yeah, why don't,
Well, we have our version right here.
I just received it. One moment, please.
yeah, there we go.
Okay.
All right.
And
Sorry.
you are,
Thank you. Sorry.
while that's coming up, will each of you tell us who you are?
Yes, my name is Taryn Beardsley.
I'm Anastasia Santisi.
I'm Annabelle Arginsky.
Okay,
Thank you for your patience.
no problem.
I can give a little background in the meantime. We all
Speak in the mic.
We all came to this this concept, which we'll describe in a second, separately, which I thought was really interesting. We're all friends, but we had this idea separately. And when we were presented with the opportunity to make this presentation, we were like, wow, let's join together. We each had slightly different ideas, but they all had the same kind of general goal, I guess, in mind. So I think it was really cool that we were able to bring our ideas together. And then we all happen to have the same thing.
There we go.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Okay, so our proposal is to have more native gardens in Beacon. But although I know that there are projects for pollinator gardens around already, ours is more so focused on, ours is focused on the native gardens, but also having spaces where people could go into them and experience it and have places to be and stay and like walk around if they want to. Next, please. So the problem that we found is that we've all felt that green spaces in Beacon, aside from Green Street, Memorial Park, Dennings, and Madame Brett, aren't very abundant or accessible to the public. And there are not a lot of gardens or areas where native plants can grow in large amounts. We found that there's a lack of free public spaces, whether green or not, for teenagers and adults to just exist and escape to for leisure in general as well. And we wanted to provide some opportunity to have a space like that while also helping other issues. So many of the public spaces in Beacon are geared towards tourism, especially the green spaces. And although that's good, that's great, and we love to have people come here, it also sometimes many locals feel that they don't have a lot of places to go because there aren't enough spaces, it seems sometimes, to fit everyone. And a lot of the spaces that do exist, such as Memorial Park and Green Street, are mostly geared towards children, and they aren't super biodiverse. It's mostly grass and trees, and we think that there should be more outdoor spaces to go for leisure or focus or just to explore, such as, like, for example, like cafes are often used for, like somewhere to sit and have nature around you to provide a better environment. Next, please. Okay, so this probably was already went over, but our idea in general is to create multiple gardens throughout the city, which include native plants and flowers in areas where everyone can enjoy the beauty of Beacon. And these gardens would go in empty plots of land. There are a few that we've specified throughout the town. Next, please. So the current research that is driving this motivation for us, first of all, native flowers increase scenic value. It makes it more beautiful. It makes it more appealing to go to in the first place. Native plants are helpful for the soil. They're meant to grow here, and it would make the area the environment in general much more healthy. It's healthier because no particular fertilizer is needed in order to grow them. Most native plants require very little water, so we would be able to conserve water and we wouldn't have to spend that much energy and time on making sure they're properly watered and things like that. As I mentioned, having these native gardens would increase biodiversity a lot, and there is a major issue in a lack of pollinators and a lack of plants for many pollinators such as bees to go to in order to make the environment thrive. And in order to provide for that need, I think the native gardens would be able to help that a lot. It's also might be important to say that they're low maintenance, and however, they would also provide volunteer jobs and positions. We could have the community help out. Anyone who would want to help out with the garden, they'd be welcome to. And it would we believe that it would be a good opportunity just to bring the community together in general to work on something that would help everyone. Some of the wildflowers and wild plants are perennials, which means that we wouldn't have to replant them every single year. They would take root and they would return every year. And finally, one that you might be able to assume, spending time outside in general is very beneficial for your health, for mental health, vitamin D levels from the sunlight, exercise, and as well as healing and things such as that. And also it could provide an educational opportunity for younger children or any children in Beacon if we had places with a lot of native wildlife to be able to teach younger people about native plants and why they're important and things like that. Next slide.
So one of the measures that's in place is the Green Beacon Coalition's work with private landowners to plant native flowers and shrubs. And one of the reasons why this is an issue is actually because Beacon is already a green city. It's a silver level New York certified climate smart community. And many people don't realize that this is actually an issue, that we don't have enough native plants in Beacon. Next slide, please. So the solution is to create public gardens with native species that are welcoming to pollinators and also to pets and people. So one of the issues that we also found is that there aren't very many places for local people to go with their pets. And it would be really nice to be able to have pet accessible places that don't require fees to enter and just allow people to relax and spend their time outdoors, because especially in a time of a lot more social media and spending time indoors, it'd be really nice to kind of have people, give people a place to go that they can spend time outside. So some potential locations that we have found are the Fishkill Overlook Falls, the empty lot next to the Green Room Beauty Lounge on Main Street, and the empty lot on Spring Street across from Barb's Butchery. And some strategies that we have come up with are having volunteers, community service groups, and farmers help by volunteering their tools, experience, and time in helping put together these gardens. We would clear out weeds and invasive plants and plant at least 5 species of native growth in each plot. So it would be shrubs, flowering plants, and perennials. And we would help refresh the soil by adding natural fertilizers as opposed to synthetic fertilizers. And compost, which hopefully we would work with the Beacon Compost Group to provide. And then we would also add small paths of either stone or mulch to these gardens so that people can walk around. Next slide, please. And so for the budget, this really depends on a lot of factors. Ideally, no land would need to be purchased in order to create these gardens. But we would hopefully also not need to pay for the natural fertilizer because we would hopefully get that from the city compost. We would need to pay for seed, which that can actually range quite a bit on the amount of money it costs per ounce for any of these kinds of seed. And the list is not limited to these flowers. It could be other plants that are planted. These are just some of the more vibrant and colorful and beneficial pollinator plants that are native to New York. But we could definitely expand the list to other species. And then we would have to pay for stone or the mulch that I mentioned for the pathways. And then hopefully we would not need to pay for the tools because those would either come from the volunteers that are helping us or from the city if they are working with us. But yeah, so it really is kind of a toss-up on the budget because it depends on what we end up hopefully doing. Next slide, yeah.
Before we can actually get to building or putting any of this together, part of what we need to take into consideration is the status of the plots that we're hoping to use. And that's kind of where we look to the city council in terms of figuring out which places are privately owned, which places are owned by the city. If they are owned by the city but not being used, would they have to be purchased? And so that's where we would hope for some conversation in terms of what those specific areas or other areas that we have not yet thought of or mentioned, if we could use those. And so that would all happen before starting this process. And then towards the end of the process, the general goal would be to get at least one garden going by September 2026. In terms of taking into consideration the prepping, the building, planting, and then also the seasons that the plants are best suited for. Next slide, please. So our general timeline, which is very much an estimate at this point, before getting into any of the building, we would have to develop the group that we would be working with. And as Taryn mentioned before, this is a project that we would really like to involve a lot of the city within. So we have community members that I know would like to just be part of something that has to do with the environment. And then we have the National Honor Society at the high school, who has students who would like to get hours, and that could be a wonderful way to do that and spend time outside. We have Green Teen, we have the Green Beacon Coalition, both programs that are really invested in the environment. The Rec Center, which is already working on something that kind of aligns with the values of this project, I'm sure would also be a wonderful source. And so once we gather that group, the goal would be to then make sure we have solidified what we are hoping to plant, which Anastasia mentioned before, and that is definitely something taken into consideration in terms of visually, what we want to attract as many pollinators as possible, get the prettiest gardens going, and then have the most environmentally sound gardens. And then we have to create the schedule for how things are going to be, the land's going to be cleared, and then once we have that all in place, we can start actually clearing the land. Now we have, there are some areas, specifically the area across from, the plot across from Barb's, that may have to have some tree thinning if this was to happen, but as a kind of counter to that, the idea would be to take the wood that we would be cutting down and turn it into benches that we could maybe use in those gardens. And then from there, start planting the crops, and then set up a schedule to help maintain and have people in place to help upkeep the gardens, which actually wouldn't be a ton of work because they would be kind of self-sustainable. Next slide, please. So in summary, our goal is to create these green spaces throughout the city where people, pets are able to go and hang out without fees, that don't have a ton of that they're not parks, they're just green spaces that are open and available to all. The goal is to help integrate the entire community into doing this and hopefully get this up and running by summer of 2026. And eventually we would like to maybe even push this farther and have benches and fountains and other features that maybe add to the aesthetic of the area, but to start with just these spaces where people can be in nature. Next slide, please. These are our works cited. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, I'm curious with that. So you cited some locations you're aware of. Can you say a little bit more about what your general criteria is for the kinds of spaces that you're looking for?
So I'm not entirely sure what it used to be, but I live around the area of Barb's Butchery, and I've seen, since I moved to Beacon, I have seen this plot of land that I haven't seen in use, but it definitely looks like an old park of some sort. And it may or may not be private property, I'm not sure, but it has, it's a very decent size, it's kind of out of the way, it's quiet, and I think it's a place that, I mean, it has, it's accessible, but it's not directly in the middle of everything. And I think and we also have some places that are kind of in the middle of everything. So I think to have a little bit of variety, and the goal is to not have just one, but eventually to have many. But to have some places just kind of spread out so that we have access all over the place.
Can I speak on that too? I totally agree with that, and I also think it would both be beneficial to have some that are out of the way, and also the ones that are more in the middle of everything would be really beneficial as well, because I feel like some of the parks that we already do have are mostly a pretty far distance from the main area of Beacon where most people walk and live. Like Memorial Park is pretty out of the way, Green Street Park as well, and so I think having some little areas with nature closer to where a lot of people are would be really beneficial for people, and also make it more accessible for people to reach.
And the other question I had, because you obviously put a lot of detail into this, when you talked about the working groups, you didn't mention the three of you. I don't know if you're seniors, it might not be around beyond the summer of 2025, but if you have thoughts about how you might want to continue to be involved if we did pursue this in any way.
Yeah, so the three of us are all seniors, so we wouldn't be able to dedicate as much time to this as we hoped, but we would really love to be a part of this and help as much as we can. Obviously, we wouldn't be able to lead it in any way, but we would definitely love to just volunteer and help with the cleaning of the plots or the planting of the growth, but we would definitely love to continue to help be a part of it.
I would also just add that I think part of what makes this so accessible, which is what we're really excited about, is that it's something that not just we are interested in. There are a lot of people, both that we're aware of, and I'm sure plenty that we're not aware of as well, that would like to be part of this. So as much as we would like to, but can't do as much as we want, there's definitely, I think, a large group of people, and then some that we can maybe pull who don't necessarily want to be part of it, that I think could form a really great group.
There are also definitely other groups that we didn't have on the slides. Like, we didn't mention the BHS Garden Club. They kind of fizzled out at the end of last year, but they definitely could be brought back. There were some members last year that were not seniors that we could have come back and help with this. And I know, like Annabelle said, that there are a lot of people that would definitely be willing to help out outside of those groups. So,
great, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. We done? Okay. So I just want to thank all the presentations. They were very enlightening. And the next step for the council is to, in workshop, that's not what this meeting is, but we meet in informal meetings. We'll take a look at these. We'll probably ask some of our department heads to take a look at some of these as they affect parks or other parts of the city. And then I just want to thank the high school and, Aaron and Principal Corey and the teachers for making this work. I think it's one of the more fun things that we do each year, and we hope it's also educational. So, yep. All right. Oh,
that would be
sure.
great.
All right. So do you want to bring them up here and line them up in here and
And you
then?
want me to take it with your phone?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Should we join a la the German students?
Come on in here. Yeah, come on in here and turn this, and then turn around and face that way.
Should we like down back?
Well, we'll figure it out in a minute.
I supposed to go taller.
Yeah, I'm going to come around. Aaron, how do I make this wider? Do you have to scrunch in? Yeah, it's scrunch in. All right, so yeah, let's come on in a little bit. Pretend like you're doing it. You guys. All right, that's just like this now. 3, 2, 1. Everybody take your picture. All right, I got my.
Nice job.
Oh, you all have to stay for the entire meeting. We're going to be meeting for another 4 hours. Yes, you may leave.
Oh, you got school tomorrow or something?
Oh, they have to go to bed, yeah. Uh-huh.
Right.
Interesting.
No, exactly. Yeah. No, I was literally watching it before I came, and I was like, it's like almost the exact same.
It'd be a good location for a park. I don't know, I guess Liberty, yeah, school. Because of the elevation.
It's the elevation on the like street side, and then everything else is through
Right.
perspective.
Lee, can I add one more thing for Nick, who's online, before we move on?
Sure.
Nick, I don't know if you can hear me yet.
I can, yes.
I think you did this for us last year as well, just to review the proposals, and as we talk about it, let us know if there are any legal issues we need to take into account in terms of things we cannot fund.
Correct. I've made my notes tonight and will do so before your work session so you can enter that discussion with our advice.
Great, thank you.
Cool.
All right, let's give them another minute. All right. They're slowly recessing. All right. So let's start up. So that's our two community segments. The next thing on the agenda is public comment. So you can talk on any topic you like. There are no public hearings this evening. You got 3 minutes. And the only one on the list signed up is Yvonne Carruthers. Come on up.
Almost makes you want to be in high school again, doesn't it?
No.
Not really.
No chance.
I'm just kidding. I think you all know me, but I'll say it anyway. My name is Yvonne Carruthers, and I'm a resident of Ward 4. Congratulations, Dan, for his great success. I'm here in two capacities, as a founding member of the Beacon Bicycle Coalition and a member of the Fishkill Avenue Concepts Committee. 2 weeks ago, when Metro North presented details of proposed development at the train station, I was pleased to hear Mayor Lee mention the need for improved bike parking and bike storage at the train station, both of which are essential to the biking community. And the mayor also emphasized the need for bikes to be able to easily get from the proposed development to the bike lanes on Beekman Street, which at this point exist only on paper. We hope they'll soon fly off the page into the real world. The Beekman Street lanes will connect to Main Street, where there are sharrows. I haven't yet seen the mayor's map for a proposed bike network, but both Main Street and Beekman should be major parts of a comprehensive bike network with many other connections throughout the city. It was also gratifying to watch the live stream of last week's council workshop because J.C. Calderon, the chair of the Fishkill Avenue Committee, of which I'm a member, updated the council on some of the work the committee has done. Specifically, he presented 4 scenarios for Fishkill Avenue, 3 of which incorporated bike lanes. The Beacon Bicycle Coalition wholeheartedly supports what J.C. calls Option D, which has bike lanes in both directions on Fishkill Avenue. We all know that when extra lanes are added to highways, the number of cars on any given highway goes up. So in closing, I want to share an interesting data point that I came across this week, which comes from Toronto. For every 100 businesses connected by bike lanes, the potential for cyclist usage increases by 40%, which is a big number. So build the bike lanes, they'll get used. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I got on the list, but if anyone here in the physical public wants to make a comment, now's your time. Come on up. Tell us who you are, where you live.
Hi, I'm Catherine Naumacher. I'm going to set a timer for myself so that I follow the 3 minutes. Hi, I'm Catherine. I live in Ward 3, and I'm a resident and a homeowner here in Beacon. And I actually came to speak about the Carmelite property with the Carmelite nuns. That property is getting ready to be sold by the Archdiocese, and it sits next to or adjacent to the Hidden Brook Park in that area of Beacon. I live in the Jensen Pond neighborhood, and my property abuts the property that's going to be sold directly. And I'm here to ask that the council and the city of Beacon take an interest in ensuring that any potential sale, development, or use of that space be one that's truly done for the betterment of residents and Beaconites, because I think and there's 4 main pieces of the development of this property that I'm thinking about for how it would impact Beacon. One is that it's the neighborhood that I particularly live in. 2 is because the road to access this property goes through Hidden Brook Park specifically, which is fully owned by the city. It would impact the use of that road and the traffic on that road and how people are currently using that park now, as well as the wildlife that resides in that area, because there's a huge amount of that area that is all currently wooded, and the traffic patterns nearby on Washington Avenue as you're coming in and out of Beacon through East Fishkill. And so when I'm thinking specifically about how the sale and the development of that might mention these, I'm going to break these 4 categories down in a little bit more detail. One is the flooding of my neighborhood and houses nearby. Specifically, that entire neighborhood is downhill from Mount Beacon, like that is our backyard essentially. And the natural landscape currently acts as a really awesome natural sponge where it pulls in a lot of that water into the ground. Even though with that happening, with that whole area being wooded, the houses in my neighborhood still get flooded on a regular basis with normal floods, similar to the softball fields that we were looking at as well. And I think that depending on how that piece of property gets developed, it could exacerbate an already existing issue for that area. And I know the storm drain there is an issue and also getting cleaned out. The second piece is for traffic patterns and safety within Hidden Brook. Even I actually used to be a neighbor of Paloma's and just bought this house and moved to that area in July.
So be aware it's a 3-minute comment, so try to wrap up. Make sure you make your points.
I've noticed that the traffic with the folks coming in and out, people are now driving 30 and 40 miles an hour to get back to that property on a road that is very, that is kind of used to be a, sorry, that's used to be a quiet respite for Beaconites, people to teach their kids how to ride bikes on that road.
So could I just encourage you to just submit your comments as well to the council?
I will, totally.
That'd be great, because that way you can wrap up, and we're supposed to limit you to 3 minutes.
Totally. So I met with Councilmember Pam yesterday, and there were a couple of questions that I'd love for the council to look into, which is, how is the land currently zoned? I looked it up, but I couldn't find a lot of information. What criteria was used for Hidden Brook to actually become part of the city?
All right, and you got one last question,
yeah.
because I got to wrap you up.
Totally. And then, does the existing deed for that property have anything that we should be aware of for the development of that? Okay. So I can submit, what's the best way to submit this?
So just send it to the city, right? Any of our emails, if any of us get it, we'll send it to everyone else.
Awesome.
Okay.
Cool. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much. Sure.
Teresa Kraft. Please do not allow the city to set a precedent and allow 248 Tyranda to get its CO based on their current dog and pony show at last week's workshop. They did not follow the city process. $1,000 times 880 days plus equals $880,000 and counting. There should be no relief. They intentionally violated our laws, and this is the price you pay. It's time to revisit and edit the city's comprehensive plan. It's time to implement a new building construction moratorium, and it's time to get Randy back at the city council table. Moving forward, where to start? Like many, I will always miss Clara Lou. Whatever the plans the city has to honor her legacy, I will help in any way. I've said before, and so has Clara Lou, Beacon must have a city municipality. Beacon, as a municipality, must have a designated historic district and landmark preservation commission, the HDLPC, not just a short arm of the planning board as its architectural review board. It's not the same league. As a resident of 5 decades, I want to say, and I want the city residents to have a say and a vote in what becomes of one of the city's treasured assets. Please do not sell the Mace Hook and Ladder to a developer, but rather turn it into the official Beacon Museum on the ground level and house the Beacon Historical Society's collection on the upper floors. Let's not allow a potential private developer to overbuild the existing structure and add an additional build out back behind the firehouse to overshadow Madam Brett Homestead, one of the most important historic buildings in Beacon and the Hudson Valley. And while the city is on a roll from its recent firehouse dedication success, buy back the old municipal building and turn it into the community center, a perfect location for all ages and a senior programming like the Fishkill Center that all our residents have to currently travel to. I think the younger generation nailed it tonight. This is the ideal location for them to gather and an ideal location for public restrooms. This would be the perfect trifecta of the recently restored memorial building, a museum at Mace, and a community and senior center all in a row, and all on the Beacon Free Loop route, and all on the exploding tourist path. As a long-standing member of the Tyranda Garden Club, along with Clara Lou, we are always looking for new members, young and old. I think those kids really need to learn about Beacon's Garden Club history. It all started with young girls, just like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Come on up. Tell us who you are, where you live.
I am Jessica Welch, Ericsmoon, 98 Nevels. Thank you, Council, for holding the 248 development, Tyranda development, accountable for starting at 5:15. You have increased the quality of my life because I'm getting more sleep, so thank you. I appreciate you immensely for that. I also want to bring up that I've spoken with many people in the neighborhood or people who frequent the area, and they had a similar reaction as I did when the 248, I guess their lawyer or whoever was speaking, the workshop before last. I had COVID last week. But they mentioned that they started the footprint of the third building at the same time. We all know that it was started perhaps, this past summer, and perhaps that was maybe 2 or 3 months ago. But I would be willing to get these people in the neighborhood, their addresses, their names, their signatures, so that you can hold them accountable, because there are eyewitnesses of this. So I know they may not. I didn't know I needed to have kept records, or I would have. But that I'd like to raise the question of, if we do have the third building be entirely residential, what does that mean to our schools? What does that mean to parking? What does that mean for the impact environmentally? Are we making less money? I don't know if, I spoke with Amber. I think she mentioned that it was going to be, since it is partially residential, that even though part of it would have been commercial, that it would still be a residential tax bracket. No? Well, would we make, I want the city to make as much money as it can from, from the developments that it's been backing up. So those are just some of the things that have come into my mind, and I really hope that it's a successful venture, because that's my neighborhood. I look at it, it's right across the street from me, and I'm not anti-development, but I want it to be good, and I want it to make Beacon thrive. So I hope to look at that a little bit more closely myself. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Oh, sure, come on up.
Rachel Rifkin, Topol as well, Ward 2. Though, congratulations, Dan. I'm not in Ward 2, but I do strongly advise or think Mr. Randy Castell would be welcome back, I guess, to the City Council. And his experience speaks for itself, and I think you would also add a different perspective. And regarding bikes, I believe in them, they're great, but we also should be practical about where we can put them. So if you can't put a bike lane somewhere, you just can't do it. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
And let's go, Randy.
All right.
Mayor, if I can just comment briefly, because there's been a couple of comments at the council meeting tonight. The process regarding filling a replacement is left solely by the charter to the discretion of the mayor. The city council's role is with respect to confirming it once the mayor has made a selection choice. So people can certainly make comments, recommendations to you, but ultimately there's no decision for the council and there's no role for the public with respect to this process. It's solely the mayor's discretion then for the council to confirm, similarly as was done at the 2 vacancies this past January. And that is set forth in the city charter, which establishes the procedure in which was created by the Charter Commission and the residents who approved it, as you mentioned back in whatever year what that was previously. So the authority for the filling of the vacant seat when it occurs on January 1st is within your discretion, your sole appointment. Then the council gets to vote on it once you make that recommendation.
Okay. Fine, I'm happy to hear any input. That's what, if you want to make some, if people want to apply, that's great. But I certainly will follow the charter, so thank you, Nick. I'm not seeing anyone else in the physical public. Anyone else online want to make a comment, Ben?
If you're on Zoom and you'd like to make a public comment this evening, you will need to use the raise hand option at the bottom of your screen. If you're joining us by phone, you will need to press *9. And lastly, if you're joining on YouTube, you'll need to visit us on the Zoom link instead. And right now we have no hands raised. Actually, we have one hand raised, and that's McCall. McCall, you have permission to speak whenever you're ready.
And Pete, we're having trouble with Ben's audio. Just if in the room, it's difficult to hear him.
Okay.
Hi, good evening, Council. This is Michal Mort. I'm in Ward 3. I just wanted to second what Jessica Erickson said, that you should consider very carefully the application from 248 Tyranda. I was only able to watch part of last week's workshop, so I don't know exactly what all the information that was provided was, but I do know that I have been following this project for a while, including their previous asks from them, and it's just should be looked at very carefully. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Ben, is that it? All right. Let's do comments or reports from the council. You want to start, Molly?
Sure. So just to piggyback on what our lawyer, Nick, said, Lee, if you are open either tonight or our workshop next week about talking about the process for filling Dan's seat, that would be great. First, congratulations for Dan, and you will be missed, and you might talk about that on your own. But in terms of from January forward, especially if you are going to take, people can submit to us, just if there's a process for that, just so they know if they're interested and want to put their name forward. I will be having office hours on Friday, December 13th, so not this Friday, but the next Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. at Bank Square Coffee House. People can come and join me if they want to talk about anything that's on their mind, or they can email me if they want to find another time to meet. And speaking of filling ward seats, now sort of December and January are actually good times if you might be interested in joining us on city council, because we actually, the process starts kind of in earnest in the new year, in the January, February time. So if you are interested, want to find out more about it, what it's involved, you could reach out to any one of us to talk about just that process as you consider whether you might want to put your hat in the ring. And lastly, I want to wish a happy birthday to the Bear Mountain Bridge that turned 100 last week on Thanksgiving when it first opened in 1924. So happy birthday, Bear Mountain Bridge. And I will pass it over to Jeff.
Thanks so much, Molly. Just really pleased that people are still using that survey questionnaire link that's up on the City Council webpage. Continue to get slow use of it, but really fantastic comments. So I do encourage people to go to our City Council page. There's a link for residents, there's a link for businesses, and both of those are in Spanish as well. So please continue to share your comments that way. And I'm going to keep it very short because, Chris, I'd like an update on some of the construction things that are happening. I imagine you might be speaking about that, but there's been some unexpected things happening in Ward 2 on some of the streets with the milling and the water mains. So it'd be great to get an update on the schedule.
Okay, let's keep going.
Yeah, I'll add my thanks that everyone already gave to the Beacon High School students for their hard work on their presentations. It's really exciting to see this program of the participatory budgeting continue to develop and to grow. I'll add my request to Molly's for the mayor to give us an update on if there might be a process for filling the Ward 4 vacancy in line with everything that Nick explained to us. I am not having open office hours, but anyone should feel free to reach out to schedule a time to connect either in person or remotely with me through next year.
Hello. I'm going to be quick. The one thing on the Hidden Brook property and the Carmelite property, I would like to find out what the zoning is and what any deed restrictions were on it, and especially in reference to the traffic going through that. And then also I'm looking forward to next week hearing more, hopefully from, more on the Fishkill Avenue with if the planning board chair is going to be there, along with other people to speak about that area also. That's all I have.
Okay. So the election results for the Dutchess County Comptroller race were made official in the last week, and I was declared the winner, and therefore this morning I officially submitted my resignation as City Council Member Ward 4, where I've served for 5 years, to the clerk and the City Council. I'm going to probably cut this short. I'll save the crying for a couple weeks from now when I'm saying goodbye to everyone. But what I do want to add is that we will have one more ward meeting in Ward 4, and Ben and I are working on scheduling that and nailing down a location right now. And that'll be an opportunity for us to just kind of touch base with residents about some of the projects going on in Ward 4, some of the things that we've discussed, some of the things that haven't moved forward, and I just think it's a good way for us to kind of bank all this knowledge about different things that matter to us and projects that may be in the works. So I will not have office hours, but there will be a ward meeting. Thank you. And my last day, my resignation is effective December 31st. Thanks.
So I'll be reasonably short. I'll just start with Clara Lou Gould. As I told everyone, she was my mayor originally. I still called her that. And, you know, the 1990s, I missed her first couple of years, but, and I know Chris saw some of this as well. I know Steve Gold and some others, including Denise Van Buren, were around during that period. And seminal work was done to point this city toward a new vision, and it made a huge difference. And I agreed with Peter Foreman's remark that Clara Lou did it in a way she didn't feel obliged to lead, and it encouraged the entire council to be much more collaborative and much more open to ideas. The consensus that got developed over that period of time crossed political lines, crossed newcomer, old-timer lines, and a lot of it had to do with her style, and I was very respectful of that. You know, we didn't always agree, but she usually figured out the right answer by the end of things. And, you know, again, I had a lot of respect for that. I had the opportunity to see her a couple of times recently, and she will be missed. Dan, congratulations, right?
Yes.
It's official?
It's official.
There you go. So we're looking for great things for, you know, from the county. You know, don't audit us right away. But there'll be plenty of other things to do. You know, in terms of process, you know, as Nick points out, the charter specifies roles. You know, the mayor makes an appointment and the council makes an approval. I certainly won't interfere with your process. I will certainly use this opportunity to say there will be an opening on December 31 on the Ward 4 council seat. I certainly encourage anyone who's interested to apply. You can send an email to either B. Swanson, that's Ben Swanson at beaconny.gov, or you can send it to me at mayor@beaconny.gov. I'll probably take applications for the next week. Probably the following week I'll say that I'm going to remind people one more time, and then we'll just shut them down, and I'll choose from that list. I've already had people express interest, and you're all welcome to do that. I'd love to have 150 people interested. I will say, and I said this last time, that I have a decided preference for people who have served, who have run for office in contested elections. I think that makes you much more aware of the community and aware of the role up here. That doesn't mean that's the only criteria, but again, that's a decided preference. So that's all I'll say there. And again, encourage anyone who's interested to, you know, either contact Ben or contact me directly and send something in. If council receives applicants, please forward them to me. I'm happy to look at them. Again, I'll probably announce it one more time and then close it down. Then the last one is I just wanted to share some information and let you know I'm going to be inviting some folks from the county to come here. You know, we had some people come and speak about housing. I just want to point out that the county's website addresses housing. Not only did I look to see what Hudson was doing, but I realized I should check what the county's doing. The county has, under the Community and Family Services Department, a housing page. And let me just read to you some of the things that the county offers. There is a special line that you can dial 211, and if you press 7 when you're dialing 211, you get the Duchess Eviction Prevention line. And specifically trained 211 staff will ask tenants a series of questions and then provide them a customized list of programs currently for which there's funding and they may be eligible for. They will also refer tenants to legal services of Hudson Valley as appropriate, and there is an online tool to do much of this as well. I did ask the commissioner and the commissioner of mental health, and they said legal services is fully funded, and they're happy to refer people. Other programs include emergency rental assistance program, emergency housing service, temporary housing resources, including violence, domestic violence shelters, other shelters that can be used. They provided a contact, and then finally, the department very specifically often act as intermediary in resolving landlord-tenant disputes that may lead to eviction. These efforts include, but are not limited to, payment of rent arrears, guiding new applicants through temporary assistance process, and then, if need be, helping families find new housing. So I found that quite instructive, and I thought, before we adopt things, we should do our homework and understand the opportunities that already exist. The county, with 300,000 people, is in a much better position to do these things, has already done most of the things that we heard they wanted Beacon to do. So what I've asked them to do is to come down and do a presentation, which they will sometime in the new year, and then to look for opportunities to communicate together what is available out there. So I just wanted to pass that along, and then I'll hand it over to the city administrator if you've got anything.
I do. Thank you, Mayor. We are milling streets the next 2 days, and then we're going to be paving at the end of this week. The schedule of those 8 roadways is on our website. It includes West Center Street, Beekman Street, Academy, Dinan, South Chestnut, Catherine, Coffee, and Beskin. So the crews were out today doing the milling. By the end of the week, we'll be done. This round of milling is on streets that Central Hudson replaced pipeline on. So all of this is being paid for. Thank you, Central Hudson, and will be done at the end of the week. Fishkill Teller Avenue will be wrapping up next week for the winter, either at the end of this week or the end of next week, depending on weather. They'll be shutting down for the winter and then remobilizing in April. They still have drainage structures to finish, so areas that don't look quite done aren't quite done. At the end of that project, all of the sidewalk will be replaced and all of the pavement will be new. So stay tuned on that. I do want to mention that our drought emergency, our stage 1 drought emergency remains in effect. Our reservoirs are less than 60% capacity, and we appreciate everyone taking measures to reduce their water consumption. It's unlikely that designation is going to change in the next month, and there's not a lot of precipitation in the forecast. The little bit that we did get was helpful, but it wasn't enough. We have discontinued and allowed to lapse our fire ban that took place for all of November. Thank you, everyone, for cooperating with that. There's now, the state classifies us at low risk, and the snow and rain did help quite a bit. So again, thank you. And it still wasn't enough to fill the reservoirs, but it did help with fire risk. And then I do want to just also pay homage to Clara Lou Gould. I served with her in 1996 and 97. I believe she was transformative in the city's history and really pushed us into the revitalization that took hold in the early 1990s and then accelerated over the last 3 decades. And if I think about our partnership with Scenic Hudson or DIA or Rivers and Estuaries or the Greenway, all of those were Clara Lou's initiatives. And I do appreciate she still would take time in the last years to give me a call every once in a while to tell me that we should try something else. And I always appreciated her advice, and she will be very missed. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks. All right, so we have a little bit of business, so let's do them. There's a resolution to appoint Christine Marino to the position of Principal Account Clerk. Can I get a motion and a second?
Motion.
Second.
So Paloma and Pam. Chris,
Dan,
anything you want to add on this?
Dan or Pam?
Oh,
thank you.
okay.
Sure. Christine Marino is currently somewhere on my notes. She is currently a senior account clerk typist, and this appointment would be a promotional appointment to principal account clerk. It's provisional, so she will have to take the civil service exam in January, but Christine has basically been in charge of our tax bill receipts, water fees. She supervises other finance staff and does all of our in-rem tax proceedings, or does the paperwork for that. It was in the budget, and it was finally, her new title was finally approved by Civil Service recently, so we look forward to promoting her to this new position.
And then I'll just add that Christine is up here at the front office and has been the foundation, throughout the period in terms of always being there, always being able to answer almost anything. So I'm very supportive. All right. All in favor of appointing Christine Marino to the position of Principal Account Clerk, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. The second one is appointing Jen McGuire to the position of Senior Account Clerk. So that's the one that Christine had. Can I get a motion and a second on that?
Motion.
Second.
So that's Molly and Dan. And Chris, would you add anything for Jen?
I would just add that Jennifer came on with the city in May of 2023. She has a bachelor's in finance or business, and she's just been an amazing resource in our finance department. We had a backlog when she came on of accounts payable, and she's worked through that, and she's kind of taken that role to a new level. So we're excited about promoting her to the position that Christine is vacating.
Okay, and I have similar just positive experiences with Jen. She started up with upstairs, then went down, and everywhere she seems to go makes improvements, so it's great. All right, so all in favor of appointing Jennifer McGuire to the position of Senior Account Clerk, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. All right, so the next one is we're looking for a motion to approve the 2025 meeting schedule. At a second.
Motion?
So that's Paloma and
Second.
Pam. And I think we made one change, Ben, is that right? Or two related changes?
Two related changes, Mayor. That was to make the first hybrid meeting, that had previously been a hybrid meeting rather, for the beginning of June into a regular meeting, and then also to change the first meeting in September into a hybrid meeting.
Right, and what that means is we will have a workshop at the end of May and then a regular meeting the first Monday of June. And then in September, we will not have a workshop in the end of August, but we will have a ganged workshop council meeting on the first Monday in September. Do I have that right, Ben?
The Tuesday.
Oh, Tuesday, because it's after Labor Day, yeah. All right. Any comments, discussion on that? All right, so.
The only thing that I'm just noticing, do we need to have because the January 6th meeting is not a workshop, it's a regular meeting, do we need to have kind of a hybrid at the first of the year?
Oh, that's a fair question. I think the answer should be yes, if we want to put that on our schedule. We ordinarily do a double meeting the 1st of January because we don't want to run a workshop in that week between Christmas and New Year's, right? So do you want to make that amendment, Pam?
Yeah, I make a motion to make an amendment to have January 6, 2025, a hybrid meeting.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
So that's Pam and Dan, all in favor of also making the first meeting of January of 2025 a hybrid workshop council meeting, say aye.
Aye.
So that amends the schedule. Now, on the full schedule, all in favor of approving the 2025 meeting schedule, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, thank you. Next one is to set a public hearing. So this is a public hearing concerning, it says parking, standing, and stopping, but Ben will give us details if someone gives me a motion in a second.
Motion. Second.
So Paloma and Molly. And Ben, what does parking, standing, and stopping mean?
Well, Mayor, let me tell you. In this case, it means two different things. Firstly, pull up the memo that the Traffic Safety Committee had put together. And in the first instance that is being recommended here is some no parking zones along Roundtree Court. This is from a request by the HOA of Roundtree Court to prohibit parking along 3 different areas in the development so as to maintain good access for emergency vehicles. They've found with their experience that when there's parking on both sides of these stretches, it narrows to an extent that they feel it may impede emergency access. And they also noted that they have 2 private community parking lots that have been historically underutilized, and they don't feel that removing parking along these stretches would be a detriment to the community. So they're pictured here in yellow, and the specific measurements were provided by the Highway Department and which are also reflected in the draft code.
Okay, that's the Roundtree Court. And you're going to tell us about the loading zone on, is it North Cedar?
That is correct. The second recommended action is to add a loading zone during certain hours along this stretch just beyond the existing no parking zone. And this does mimic existing hours and duration of another loading zone that exists on Main Street already over by Alps Chocolatier. And this was also unanimously recommended by the committee.
Okay. So that's very consistent with our conversation last Monday. Any comments or further discussion? All right, so all in favor of approving these two changes to our local laws regarding parking, standing, and stopping, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. So the last one are amendments to the 2024 budget. Can I get a motion and a second to approve the ones that we discussed last Monday, and Chris will go through them?
Motion.
Second.
So Pam and Molly, you want to do it, Chris? You want me to do it?
No, I got it. Thanks,
Okay.
Lee. So these are 4 amendments to the general fund. The first is to increase purchase of equipment by $9,022 for the DPW's new phone system. We needed to add a line there. If you called into that building, it wouldn't even go to voicemail. So we worked with our vendor, ITC, to come up with a new system that gives us an extra line, and that way people don't get just nothing when they call the phone system. So this would come out of the contingency fund. The second item would increase the consultant line for planning of $15,000. Transferring it from planning studies, and again, this is for the Fishkill Avenue and also general planning work that KARC has done, KARC has done for us. Number 3 were 2 payouts of severance, in this case of our deputy recreation assistant, and then also we had a dispatcher who was under one union contract, and then she moved to become a police officer. So she has different conditions of employment. So we just paid out the old contract, and then we started her fresh with the new one. The fourth item is to transfer $50,000 to overtime from miscellaneous revenue. This is directly related to the milling and paving work. And our overtime for our staff, when they do a lot of the handwork behind the milling and are there, dealing with the traffic issues, dealing with drainage structures and water valves and manhole covers. And this money is coming out of the proceeds from Central Hudson, and they paid us to do this milling. So some of it goes towards paying the contractor, and some of it goes towards paying overtime for our staff, and that's in the amount of $50,000.
Okay.
And I
Any
think
comments?
thank you to Susan Tucker for covering last week and talking about these.
Any comments at all? Okay, so all in favor of these 4 budget amendments, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. And then the last one is just approval of the minutes of November 18th. If I can get a motion in a second.
Motion.
Second.
So Molly and Pam, any additions or changes? I didn't see any. All right. So all in favor of approving the minutes of the November 18th, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All
Just
right.
one abstention.
Oh.
Wasn't here.
Okay. And 1 abstention. And then this is the second opportunity for public comments. If you haven't spoken at the first opportunity, you may do so now for up to 3 minutes on any topic you like. There is no one in the physical audience that is eligible to speak in the second opportunity for public comments. Ben, anyone online?
No.
Okay. So let me announce the next meeting, which is December 9th. That's next Monday at 7 o'clock. It will be a workshop here, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
So Pam and Dan, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I hear no opposed, so I'll bid everyone good night. So,
Good night, Mayor and Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
thank you, Nick.
Night.
Recording.
Okay.